Welly, welly, well. Finally, with this case. For those of you who saw me at the very end of SHOT Show 2019, and by that I mean the absolute very end when carpets were being rolled up, and I'm talking about Zhao from Oakley and some of the guys from the Strider booth. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, this is the same case. And we will get into what this case is right here. This is going to be the MicroFire S50. And actually, and more accurately, the MicroFire Optispike S50, S50, on loan to yours truly. We will endeavor to get a shot at yonder far side. There's a butte, and by a butte I mean a land navigational butte, not a butte lady, over that way, and there's another butte that way across the lake. We will get the coordinates and distance dialed in a little bit later via the GPS coordinates, but that just gives you an idea of the distance that we're going to test this at. We may also take a shot at the tree that is on the peak or on the ridge line of that hill, and quite possibly even this rock formation here where there is a telephone pole mounted on that rock formation. That is a good approximate 300-yard shot and will be a good sounding board, I believe. This next phase of the testing of MicroFire's Optispike S50 or S50 spotlight is going to be in an office environment at approximately 68 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll run this test to determine approximate runtime of the battery itself. This is a proprietary battery by MicroFire called the Tactical K6S battery. It's a battery pack that charges at the tailpiece. There is a LED indicator to indicate the charge, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That indicates the battery is at full charge and it was just recently unplugged. There are threads on this end of the battery casing. I'm not sure what that is about, and of course the cable going into the battery pack itself. I'm going to leave this in full view, in other words for full disclosure purposes, so that there's no external power source to the Optispike S50, and we'll go ahead and run the time of this with a stopwatch and get an estimate of actual running time. So we'll deploy the battery into the on position as indicated by the flashing LED. We will push the trigger button of the Optispike, and we'll see that it is strobing right now. Try and bring it out. There we go. We've got it off of strobe. That may be a different setting. So we definitely have the light on, and now running the stopwatch to get an estimate of actual run time. And again, for full disclosure purposes, keeping everything in view of our camera, you can hear the fan, which is activated, obviously for cooling purposes, of this spotlight. So, again, get an indication of just, let's hit that again. Zooming it in for a tighter, now a wider. Just going to go ahead and open it up. Now obviously the motor would be using some of the battery capacity, but of course we would be using that in the field as well. And we will just, okay, the fan had cut off. It kind of is in and out. So apparently the fan will activate based upon actual needs. Of course the light is definitely still on, as indicated. And we'll let this continue to run. We're at approximately 1 minute 24 seconds. Still running on the time. And we'll come back when the light itself is giving some indication of not functioning. We're still in the timed run of the battery and the power pack for the MicroFire Spotlight. As we can see, it's still on and running. You can probably hear the fan has engaged. Fan at the back of the light itself, the light case itself. Now the battery has become quite warm, almost difficult to hold as far as the raised temperature of the battery pack. The flashlight body itself is quite warm, but of course the fan is engaged. This part of the body of the flashlight is warm but not hot, and up near the bezel of the spotlight, it's not as warm as I would think it should be. And touching the lens, it is not. It's actually cool to, almost cool to the touch. Less temperature than around the bezel, the body of the light, the base of the light, which has become a little hot, more hot now, almost too hot to hold, and the battery pack, again, quite hot. It would be uncomfortable to grip at this point. Of additional note, we're currently at 46 minutes and running, if that's visible. And the fan was not on originally when we cut away. However, the fan has been on for approximately 20 to 23 minutes. So once obviously it's temperature sensitive and engages based upon the thermal signal that the fan itself picks up. And we're still running. I've done just some very slight, again, adjustments of the zoom for the light itself. And I've just noticed that pressing either of the zoom buttons is not engaging an adjustment of the zoom or the diameter of the beam. So there may be a thermal issue with regards to that. Since we are at the just surpassed 47 minutes of running time, I'm going to go ahead and turn the light off. Notice that the zoom audible signal engaged. The fan turned off. Now I just turned it back on. We're at a very pinpoint light adjustment for this. And at the 47-minute, 38-second range of running time, it appears that the adjustment is not possible at this time. It's on a very narrow beam. And we'll let this continue to run because one of the reasons for this runtime test is to check the duration of the battery in a somewhat stable environment. Handle, of course, is not temperature sensitive at all. There's no heat in the handle itself. So we're continuing to run the time, currently at 48 minutes and 21 seconds. We're now at the 53:22 second mark on the stopwatch on our running time. The MicroFire Spotlight S50 just went into automatic shut-off, powered off and shut off. I restarted the battery without any recharge, of course, but simply recharged the battery, or restarted the battery rather, through the button and the selector, and was able to get the light to power back on, and fan is running. So it went into automatic shutoff mode. That may have been because of a thermal protection issue, and I'm basing that strictly on the hand temperature, the discomfort of holding this. And while we're running, the whole rustling in the background is an attempt to get our trusty laser thermometer, and we'll try to get a temperature reading on this. The reading on the body of the flashlight, or the body of the battery, cannot be correct. We've got 113 degrees Fahrenheit on our laser thermometer, fluctuating between 100, well, now it's back up. It went down to 107. That may have been because I moved it around a bit. And the body of the battery is fluctuating a bit. 102 degrees, 101. Now it's getting back to 97. That cannot be correct. 103. 114 on the fan area of the battery, or of the flashlight. Let's get this right in between. See if that's correct. So that's about that can't be correct either. It's a little warm there, but not by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, we're having a malfunction of some kind from our laser remote thermometer. Well, okay. Some type of an issue or problem with our laser thermometer, but it was reading up to about 114 degrees Fahrenheit, and I can easily believe that because, again, the battery pack is too hot to grip very tightly, and to hold it is somewhat uncomfortable. Same thing with the body of our spotlight, of the MicroFire S50 spotlight. Currently running at, with that restart of the battery, 57 minutes 39 seconds of runtime. So well within, with the restart of the battery, the reboot, if you will, of the battery, very close to 1 hour of constant running time. Again, if you were needing, if this was in use in the field and under mild weather conditions, you know, this may cool a little faster. The battery pack is on a tile floor and somewhat raised, so it's not under any additional heat or thermal addition, you know, increase in thermal temperature. And all the other parts of the spotlight itself are, you know, the control sequence is very manageable. None of the other components or connectors are heating up or overheating. And we'll let this continue to run. We're currently at 58 seconds, 41, or 58 minutes, 44 seconds, and running. I'm going to let this continue to run, and we'll let this go to the next phase where it automatically powers off. Okay, now, so the unit just shut off again. We do not have light emitting from the beam, and this was at approximately the 1 hour, 1 minute, and prior to 38-second sequence of time. So at just over 1 hour, with one reboot of the battery, and that is pretty hot right now, with only one reboot of the battery, because of an auto shut-off issue, was able to, with almost near continuous running of this light. I'm going to, okay, I just rebooted the battery. We're getting this high-pitched sound from, battery is on, so the battery has not expired yet. I'm going to, okay, we came on with the strobe feature. Okay, very good. We're back to continuous light again. So I am going to, okay, just power it off again on its own. Probably because of this thermal issue, quite possibly the battery probably has a thermal issue or a thermal shut-off as well. And pressing the button for the battery is not getting it to come back on at this point. And of course, the light itself is not coming on. So it did come on for probably somewhat close to about less than a minute, perhaps right around 1 full minute before it powered off. Let's see if I can get this battery pack, try to make a determination of if the battery pack has run out of proverbial juice. It has cooled a bit to the touch. It's not quite as hot as it was before. I'm not going to worry about the runtime on the stopwatch at this point. I'm going to see if this cools down a bit and if the battery will come back on, or if we have expired all of our energy from the battery. Checking back in a few minutes. At this point, it has been beyond 1 hour post the last time that this light was on. The body of the battery case is cool to the touch. The body of the spotlight is also likewise cool to the touch. And we will check to see if in fact we get any indicator that, or indication rather, that the battery still has any power to it by pressing the activation button, pressing and holding. And as is pretty clearly demonstrated, the green LED is not lighting in any way, shape, or form. In an attempt to double check, we attempted to turn on the spotlight by intermittently pressing both power buttons. So safe to say that the Tactical K6S battery pack has expired on power. There is no more proverbial juice in that canister. And likewise, obviously, the spotlight will not function at this point. A few more points of interest on the light. There appears to be one LED in the center at the very base, back in the body. It appears to be one LED, and we do have 4 LEDs across the bottom, an array of 4 LEDs. I'll need to inquire with MicroFire about the purpose of these smaller LEDs. I have not been able to get them to activate at any point thus far. So, now for the field. Well, I spoke a little too early. Actually, what we have done is plugged in the MicroFire recharging unit into the battery pack with the proper plug-in location. And it's been charging for approximately 2 hours. I want to see where we are on the charge. We should have, I believe, 4 or 5 bleeps on the LED display. I have left the battery connected to the spotlight itself. However, obviously not activating it. So we check this by depressing the power button on the battery. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we are at full capacity. That's the same range of power display that we had before. before we started the test that resulted in a little over 1 hour of almost constant running time. So about 2 hours on charging this battery, which is a good sized battery pack. Thought I would run that through while we still had it in the office and available for a level of testing. Very good. So time for the field again. Well, the MicroFire Optispike S50 is going to be tested in a bit of a slight shower. We can hear the crickets in the background, and of course this is the Optispike. The control handle pivots a bit for comfort, I would imagine, and also for stability. We'll start off with a shot at approximately that 300-yard mark, and go ahead and come on over here. And we'll pivot camera there. We're powering up with the button. We've got the green LED showing that we've got power. Deploying the target button. And as you can see, at 300 yards, we're getting quite the illumination. Go ahead and, if you can, zoom in on that. Zoomed in. And I'm going to open this up to widen the shot. Now we've got rain, which is causing a bit of a shroud and not giving us a real clear field of view. Now, that is that telephone pole that we saw in that earlier shot. Now we'll go ahead and pivot around here. I'm going to turn this off for now. We'll get a shot across this lake. Again, activating the battery, and we will go for the butte on the right side of the frame. If we can zoom in a bit, I'm not sure if we're getting an accurate strike at that point. Quite frankly, I'm not sure what type of illumination. The illumination seems to dissipate out at several hundred yards, and I don't seem to be getting a strike on the water surface. Come on up here. Shooting down towards the surface of the lake, we have a tree line down there that again is at about 300 yards or so. Let's open up that's that pinpoint, and this is, if I recall correctly, it's an LED P-like pawl. Once we strike the water, I'm not getting any bounce off of the water surface that I can tell by the naked eye. And of course, trying to strike that butte off to the right does not seem to be getting any effect. Trying to strike the land at that point, not much of an effect either. Just going for an aerial shot, seems to again be going easily 300 yards or so, maybe a bit more, maybe 500 yards. But at this point we'll need a better target. And just reduce the size down a bit, so we'll turn that off and power off the battery as well. So that's the MicroFire Optispike S50.